Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Trade Secrets by Triple Tote. This is the show where we get the trade secrets that people have that are basically the secrets to their success. Today, I have a really special guest with me. I've known this gentleman for about 5 years, maybe 6 years, and again, just another person I got to witness them take off and have success with a unique idea. I can't wait for you guys to hear about how he got started, how his idea flourished, and how he did it starting as a one-man show and grew it out into a thriving business today. My guest name is Mike Morris, and his company is called Recdesk. Hey, thank you for coming out, Mike.
Hey, you're very welcome, Antwaine. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Now, to get started, we want to get a little backstory. Before you started your business, Recdesk, what did you do for occupation?
Yeah, I was working as a consultant in IT. So
Gotcha.
I was working at banks, insurance companies, and places like that.
Now, how did you get the idea for Recdesk?
Yeah, so I was like I said earlier, I was working in IT as a contractor. It was a good job. I was compensated well, but it just didn't feel right in terms of I go into the office every day. It was I'd open up my Outlook and I'd have meetings on there for a good part of the day, and it would always I'd see that and I'd just kind of go, I don't feel like going for all these meetings. So I started to think, hey, I'm a programmer by trade. Why can't I put together my own product and try to branch out on my own? And so that's what I actually did. And it wasn't like I had any. So I just looked around. For some opportunities, and this one I can't tell you exactly how it is I came up with it, but I saw an opportunity, and it was an area that I could get my arms around I should say. It wasn't too difficult to understand how it is that these organizations operate. They offer programs, they offer activities, they've got other assets that they kind of manage, like ball fields, rec centers, and things like that. So it wasn't an area that I had to have a particular expertise in or education. I could just kind of look at it. So I just thought about it, and I just started to write some code, basically.
Now, how did you go from working as a consultant for banks and other institutions? What was it like to actually transition out of the job into Recdesk? Did you do like part-time at night while you worked during the day, or did you just go cold turkey?
No. I started off, I didn't go cold turkey. So when I started off, I have 2 children, so I wasn't like I was able to just branch out and go off on my own. So right. I would just one evening a week, I just wouldn't go back to the house after work. I just go and I take those like 6 to 8 hours and I just work on this. So I would go to a quiet place, and oftentimes it was either a coffee shop or like a library, and I just worked there until it closed.
Now, how long did you do that extra night a week before you were?
I would say I did that for about a year or so, right? So at that point, I actually had a product that I was able to kind of go out and at that point I was able to pitch. It wasn't comprehensive. It only covered the registration piece of their business, but for those organizations out there that were doing everything on paper, and they would have to, people who wanted to register their children for basketball or softball, whatever it happened to be, normally you'd have to go into the office in between the hours of 8:30 and 4:30. So I had put together this over the course of a year or so where you could do that online now on the web. So I went out and I started to pitch it to people, and I didn't get any traction at all.
Wow.
No buyers. So I did that for about a year, and then I continued to pitch it, and I think I picked up my first client in 2006.
Wow. So you were out there for 12 to 14 months before you got your first client?
Yep. And I did this. Wasn't like it was an MVP or anything like that, or I went out prior to this and I interviewed people, rec directors or anything like that. Back then, that wasn't even on the radar, actually, MVP and all those types of things. So I kind of built it, and then I went out after the fact and I tried to sell it, which if I was going to do it all over again, I'd probably reverse that.
Yeah, you would have did a lot of selling while, after you got past MVP, you would sell while you perfected it.
Right, absolutely. And actually, I did have, there was one individual who did express an interest early on. It was a municipality here in Connecticut, and then when I finally had it all put together, I went to that person in that organization, and they were a bit hesitant to move forward with it. So it was a little bit of a blow, but I can, looking back at it, I can also I can understand their hesitancy with just being a new company.
Understand.
One person.
Yeah, and then you will be responsible for running a municipality or a portion of municipal activities, and they then want to, what seemed as a big risk for them.
Risk for them, and you're taking people's credit cards, right, over the internet and things like that. So did that, and then I think, I picked up that first customer. I was actually up in New Hampshire at the time. I had gone up there for the weekend to hike Mount Washington, and I got out of the car and I got a phone call, and it was a department out of Illinois. She called me up and she said, "Hey, I'm so and so, and I'm interested in your software." So I gave her the pitch, and I didn't mention at that time that I didn't have any other customers or anything like that. And then about a week after that, I brought them on as my first client.
So it was about 14 months for you to get from programming the product to getting your first customer, and you had no background in sales. This was your first sales pitch?
I did not have a background in sales.
Wow.
I didn't have anything no background in sales. I did have a background, obviously, in technology, and I had also gone, college and just through, managing a household. I did have somewhat of a background in business. So I understood accounting and finance and things like that, but no, I had no expertise at all in sales.
Wow. Now let me ask you, and it's really important, I want to hone in on you getting your first customer, because that's where it all starts. So and you can do one, you can duplicate it eventually and get 2, then 4, then 8. So during that process, after programming but working on your first customer, how did you handle rejection and discouragement? How did you manage yourself to keep going even though it took a long time for you to get your first customer? Yeah,
I think it was hard. It wasn't, there's no question at all. I think that everyone kind of has that, expectation that you're going to kind of build something in, and the rest of it will take care of itself. But it was hard in that, you'd reach out to people and emails, calls, and things like that. Now, I wasn't a salesperson.
Understand.
I'm a natural salesperson, and for those people listen to the podcast or viewing, I stutter also. So I found it more difficult than most people probably to make those calls, to pick up the phone and call people. But I just persisted. I did. There were some. There was a trade show that I went to up in Massachusetts back in 2006, I believe, and that was the first one that I ever went to.
Wow.
And I went to that, and to be honest, that night I don't think I went to bed. I was, so nervous about that first trade show. But looking back at that, I kind of laugh at it because I go to these things where I have a team actually who goes to them now, but I don't think twice about it.
Understand.
But yeah, I think it's one of those things. Rejection is a hard thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's in business, whether it's in your love life, whatever it happens to be, right? It's a difficult thing, but I think people are resilient, and you just continue to push forward. And I think what ends up happening is you kind of get another customer or whatever, and that kind of makes up for all that rejection.
Now, when I met you officially, you were moving along. The train was moving, and you were a one-man show.
Yep.
What I noticed about you, particularly, is that you were very regimented. Like, from my point of view, you would take a break. Okay, break's over. Time to get back to work. Because when you're the one-man show, you're handling sales. Right. You're handling customer concerns. You're handling inquiries. If something goes wrong or glitchy with the software, you're handling that. So you're handling like 4 or 5 positions as one person. And what I noticed about you is that you were so organized and you were so regimented. I was like, maybe this guy has a history of like being in the army or something because he's so regimented. How did you become so disciplined in what you were doing? Was it just from whatever, high school sports, college sports? Was it the Army? How did you become so disciplined, at least with your time? Because that's one thing I noticed about you.
Yeah. So I think that I am a person just who does have some discipline. I mean, I can deal with. I think I've accept that, like, in order to kind of do this and other things in my life, there is going to be a certain amount of pain, right? That's involved with that. But I think in any business, I don't think there's necessarily a recipe or a formula that is going to guarantee success in a particular business, but I do know that, like, you kind of have to continue to, every day you've got to continue to push the things forward. So I kind of had that kind of a mindset. I mean, like I said, on a daily basis, I was coming in, I was writing code, enhancements were going into the system. I was doing demos on the phone through the internet. I would, I'd make calls. I'd be taking in, I'd be handling support. So as far as my background, I think I've always been one of those guys who has been disciplined. I've been, I work out. I get up at a regular hour every day, and it's just part of my personality. So I think that's helpful when you are trying to get something like this off the ground and moving.
Oh, 100%. 1 second. I think this thing's blocking.
Oh, I got
So it
you.
didn't sense it.
There we go.
Blocking. So I'm just
You get that figured out.
I mean, that question will stay, but just me getting up.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
5, 4, 3, 2. So on top of being disciplined, I remember that one time we had a great conversation in your office, and I think we were just talking about general life stuff, like, you work, then you go to a retirement and 401k. And one thing that stuck out to me, and sometimes when you do meet a person, they usually can give you a signal. Not consciously, but they usually give you a signal about how serious they are. And I was like, yeah, I was just reading this thing or something that the average person doesn't have enough money to retire on because of this and this and that. And you said, like, with so much certainty and simplicity, I'm not relying on anybody else to handle my retirement. I'm going to build my business to handle that. And I remember that just stuck out to me as just a sign that this guy is super serious. And it really made me think, and it really was a good thing. From being a one-man show, you grew, and you grew customers, and then you moved to a bigger location, and you started to hire people. Going from a one-man show where you run everything, how do you manage to dish out responsibility to other people with the trust that they're going to get it done right? Like, how did you gradually offload responsibility?
Well, I think that for me, fortunately, it did kind of happen gradually because I grew this company. It was bootstrapped, right? So it kind of all happened organically. It isn't like all of a sudden I was going 5 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden I was going 100 miles an hour. So I was able to the first individual that I brought on was a salesperson. His name's Todd. He's been great. So he joined me in 2013, I believe it was. So I brought on him, and then I was able to bring on a support person, and then shortly after that, I brought on an other salesperson, and then another support person, a programmer, and on and on and on. So I kind of had the opportunity to really evolve also, and I have every day I learn something new, whether it's about the business, whether it's about management styles, or just how to do things differently. So I think I've always been the kind of person who kind of figures, and not that I still do this every day, but I try to. I think you always have to be, in order to kind of grow as an individual, grow as a person, you always kind of have to operate just a little bit outside of your own comfort zone. And there's a reason why they call it a comfort zone, because when you're in the comfort zone, things are great, but when you just move just a little bit outside there. So I've had to do that for the past 12 years or so. In order to keep this moving, I constantly had to keep just a little bit outside of my comfort zone. So one of those areas where I've had to do that is to give up some responsibilities and trust those people who I've hired to help me out to manage those types of things.
Now, in your next phase of business from where you are now, I know there's the next mountain you want to climb and grow the business. Do you feel like all that you've done so far, with all that you've done so far, do you feel that you see yourself being like a big corporation? Do you see yourself, you're going to keep growing incrementally because you have the platform, and the platform obviously can handle a lot of customers? What's your style to grow to? A corporation or just a bigger shop, kind of like you are right now? Like, what do you prefer? I wouldn't
envision this as a corporation or anything like that, but I believe that there are an awful lot of opportunities because we operate here. The bulk of our customers are in the U.S. here. So there are lots of opportunities. We're going to be making Canada we are planning on over the next 12 to 18 months or so, like making a big push into Canada. So there's some opportunities in this particular vertical in other places that we see. So that's one thing. And then there are also other opportunities in other related type of verticals. So
That's right.
I would say the bulk of our customers at this point are municipalities, but there are opportunities in for things like private community centers, aquatic centers, school districts and things like that. And then there's some other opportunities where we kind of hope to be able to really get into some national accounts with some bigger organizations.
Yeah.
So the bulk of our sales is picking up a customer here and there, municipalities, individual rec centers, but there are an awful lot of organizations out there that would have a need for our platform that have a bunch of branches all over the country, whether that's Boys and Girls Clubs, YMCAs, and places like that. So I think we'd like to get into that type of space.
So for my last question, I have a question that a lot of people ask. They ask me, or I know that they ask of themselves. A lot of people have ideas and new products and services they want to offer to a school system or to the Department of Transportation of all these different municipalities. And you seem to figure out a way to get a foot in the door of a municipality when people understand that you can't just contact the school. You probably got to talk to the Board of Ed for certain things, or you got to talk to this guy who's the head of this. And it could be hard for somebody with a business that's based upon that hard target of a municipality.
Right.
How do you manage the process of getting in front of the right people and actually getting a deal done?
All right. So, early on, it was a matter of reaching out to the individual at the rec department, right? And so we reached out to that individual, and if they had this particular need, and if they thought our platform was a good fit, they go to their bosses. But you're right, though, it isn't always an easy thing to do. There are other constraints. They're constrained by they have different budget cycles too, right?
Yeah.
So there are some cities have a budget that starts on January 1st. Others are April 1st. But for us, it was just a matter of consistently reaching out to these people at the individual at the particular department, and
Gotcha.
we also. We go to trade shows all over the country. So
Gotcha.
This year, I think we're going to do probably like close to 40 trade shows.
Wow.
So all over the country. So just by constantly being out there in front of people, when that need comes up and they say, hey, we're looking at for recreation management software. Who should we call?
Wow.
Hopefully we're on the radar. But it's difficult early on when you don't have any customers, or you just have one or two customers. Everyone asks, who do you have in Texas? What other customers do you have in Texas? What other customers do you have in California? And early on, you just have to be honest with them.
That's right.
And you try and play that off as a strength, actually.
Yeah.
We don't have any customers currently in Texas, but we do have X amount in Oklahoma or whatever it happens to be. So you always want to kind of take something that could be a negative and and hopefully turn it around.
So let me ask you this: when you say you're going to expand to like Canada next, how do you do that? I understand the declaration of it. Do you just start venturing out into trade shows that are taking place in Canada? Like, what is the process? Because sometimes I watch like CNBC or other shows, and somebody says, we're not big in Asia yet, so we're going to expand to Asia. And I always wonder, like, well, how do you do that? You don't live in Asia. Like, how are you going to make that happen? So how do you guys do that or plan to do that?
How do we go about that? Well, obviously, I think it's a little bit easier to expand into Canada than Asia, of course.
Yeah.
But first of all, it's makes it easier for a platform like ours. We don't necessarily have to there isn't like a language barrier, which certainly makes it easier. Certainly, Ontario is both, or is it? Ontario is both French and English, whatever happens to be it, but for the most part, it's not. So we have the good thing about our business is most of the individuals who we want to reach out to, that information is publicly available. So you can go to a website for a particular municipality, and they'll have on there, this is the contact information for the rec director. Here's the person in finance. So at that point, it's a matter of just reaching out to those people. You know, we get them into our CRM. We are going there. Our trade shows up there, so we just kind of build up. And we already have, I don't know how many, at this point, how many clients we've got up there, but we probably have about 20 clients at the moment.
Wow.
So we have a little bit of a base up there that we can build out on. So we've kind of proven that there is, up there, there's a product market fit, right? So now it's just a matter of continuing with that process. Like you talked about earlier, it's got to be disciplined, and you got to keep on repeating it over and over again, and hopefully over time it bears fruit.
Thank you. I want to thank you again for coming on the show. For anybody looking to learn more about Recdesk, what you guys do, and your story in particular, where can they find you? Yeah,
they can go to our website. It's recdesk.com, and we are located in Middletown, Connecticut.
Thank you again for coming on. Thank you guys again for tuning in. This is another episode of Trade Secrets by Triple Toe, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks a lot.